Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
All right, Pete, welcome back. Films and Stuff. How are you today?
I am good, Ethan. How are you?
I'm great because today we have agreed that this episode will be one of our wide-ranging, informative, yet laser-focused examinations, overviews, treatises,
when I think of
anthologies.
Films and Stuff, when I think of Ethan and Pete at Films and Stuff, laser-focused isn't necessarily the first thing that comes to mind.
Have we ever gotten off topic?
Have we ever gone on a tangent? I don't know.
Over the course of 130 episodes, have we ever failed to follow the script precisely? Any ad-libbing? I don't know.
Maybe only 125 times.
All right. So today it's all about MCU Phase 4. Phase 4 is done, right?
Phase 4 is done with Black Panther.
Wakanda Forever. That's the closure of Phase 4.
That's right. So I'm going to caveat this right now off the top of the show. Phase 4 is officially over. It started with Black Widow all the way back at the beginning of the pandemic. And it ends with Black Panther 2, which was released 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
There are 2 more TV shows that have yet to be released that are officially part of Phase 4, but not quite. They are the in-betweens. You have Werewolf by Night, which is a one-off Marvel special TV show. And you've got Guardians of the Galaxy's Holiday Special. So these are 2 different shows which don't actually fit the grand scheme of the MCU.
All right.
So even though they're coming out within the 4th phase of the MCU, they're not considered a part of the phase structure of the story because they have nothing to do with the actual stories.
All right. Okay.
So that's my caveat.
Okay.
I'm going to name the movies and the TV shows in more or less the order that they came out in. And you and I just quickly, we're not going to give any criticism. We're not going to give anything other than ratings, just so that we can kind of set the scene for what we're talking about today.
Before we do that, may I just, not to create a tangent where none is needed, should we just explain where Phase 3 ended off?
Oh, that's a great point.
Phase 3 for me was, I consider Phase 3 like the heart and soul of MCU. And it was, as far as I'm aware, it was only cinema. There were no TV shows included in Phase 3. Am I right?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. I understand there's 10 in Phase 3. You want me to rattle them off?
Yes, please.
Captain America Civil War, Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy, Spider-Man Homecoming, Thor Ragnarok, Avengers Infinity War. So I guess that includes, Black Panther, the original, Captain Marvel, Brie Larson, Endgame, Avengers 1 and 2, Spider-Man Far From Home. Those, I guess 11 if Endgame is 2. That's it. I mean, and every single one of those for me is like a treasure. Like every single one I think is almost must see, right? So for me, that's the heart and soul of MCU because all these characters we already kind of knew, we were introduced to. We love them and we got to see them like again in a little bit more of a, mature, context.
Yeah, I think that's the key word is the mature context.
Yeah. So I thought Phase 3 was just wow. And then after that, right? Because if you kind of look at Avengers Endgame, Spider-Man Far From Home, you're like, where do we go from here? But tell me about Marvel Phase 4. You read them off, but I think generally it's been exceeded our expectations, or at least mine.
Okay, so let's start. So Black Widow.
Yeah.
Mooch, skip, or subscribe?
Must see cinema.
It kicked off the controversy because It was supposed to come out in the cinema.
Yeah.
And Disney then decided to pull it from the cinematic release and
Yeah.
release it directly on Disney Plus. Right?
Yeah.
And so Scarlett Johansson got pissed off. The directors got pissed off. Everyone was super pissed off. So that's why
Bad situation all the way around.
Bad situation all the way around. And, you can't blame Disney, but at the same time, you can blame Disney.
Yeah.
So Black Widow for you is a must subscribe.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. For me, it was a mooch. Shang-Chi.
Mooch.
Same for me. For Shang-Chi was the first official cinematic release of the season of the MCU in Phase 4. For me, it's a wait for streaming.
Yep.
Eternals.
Skip
for me. Then we go to TV. WandaVision. Skip for me. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which then became Captain America and the Winter Soldier.
I guess that's a mooch.
Same for me. Loki.
It's a very, very high mooch because I think there's a lot of really important information in that. And I love Loki. It almost reaches a must subscribe.
Whereas for me, it was a must subscribe.
Yeah.
The What If series, I don't know if you watched this or not.
Never saw it.
Okay, so that for me was a mooch. It was really nice, but I don't think it added anything to the MCU as a whole.
Yeah.
Hawkeye?
Probably skip.
For me, it's a mooch. Then you have Spider-Man 3, No Way Home.
No Way Home. You know what? I'll probably give that a must see it in a cinema only because we had so much nostalgia. I think I cried. It's pretty emotional. I have to say, just because of that, we probably have to say that's a must see in cinemas.
Yep, same for me. Doctor Strange 2.
I guess that's probably a wait for streaming.
It's a wait for streaming for me as well. Moon Knight.
That's probably a mooch.
For me, it's a must subscribe. Ms. Marvel.
Whoa. I don't think I saw Ms. Marvel, did I?
Yeah, we did. I don't know if you finished it, but we saw it together. We talked about it.
We did?
Mm-hmm.
Remind me. Oh, yes, you're right. Oh, that's a mooch. Sorry, I was thinking Captain Marvel. Yeah, you're right. That's a mooch. I saw that.
Yep, you're right. So that's a mooch for me as well. Thor 4.
Love and Thunder. That's a wait for streaming.
Likewise. She-Hulk.
That's a skip and pretend it never happened.
Yeah, that's a skip and send Disney a strongly worded letter for me.
I'd say that's a skip and ask Disney for a refund.
Yeah. And Black Panther 2.
Black Panther 2. I would say that's probably a wait for streaming, but if you called it a must subscribe, I wouldn't fight you over it.
So it was a wait for streaming for me as well.
Yeah.
So, okay. So let's do a quick thing. I also want to say another.
We should have, you know what? We should have just kept a score there. We should have added it up. But I think generally what we said for, I'm just making this up now, but generally for cinema, everything was wait for streaming or must see. For television, it was mostly skip or a mooch.
Yeah. So for me, let's put one. The first caveat I think that's important is that for our regular listeners and our regular viewers, you'll note, especially for me, some of the scores have changed from when we first saw the movie or when we first saw the TV show. And I think that's
you think you're going to get audited? You're
No,
worried
it's
about
not.
the audit.
First of all, as the finance guy, I'm always worried about audits. But second of all, I think it's also important because this is, I think, how people generally feel about shows, right? When you first watch a movie or a TV show, your emotions are at a high.
Yeah, true.
You know, you are at...
You're on a popcorn high.
You're on a popcorn high. You are on a high, and this is kind of like where everyone kind of grades the movie at that moment.
Yeah.
But then with the benefit of time, with the benefit of, a little bit of thought, you get to really think about it. So, for example, Thor, Love and Thunder, I walked out of that cinema ready to, join a gym and start injecting steroids. And I was just like, yeah, this is a must watch in cinema. And it was lovely. And don't get me wrong, I think it's a good movie. But now, 6 weeks, now like 2 months later, I'm sitting down and I'm like, you know what? I'm fine with it. It was fine. It's nowhere near as good as Ragnarok.
Oh, Ragnarok.
Right? And I think that it is a good movie, but I don't think that, with the benefit of hindsight, I would not rush out to the cinema like we did to see it. That's where I stand with that.
Yeah. I'm so sad about Love and Thunder. A movie that I wanted to love so badly, and I just felt it was the absolute minimum in terms of entertainment quality that we could have received.
Yeah, they could have gone deeper with it. They could have, I don't know. There's a lot we can talk about that, but yeah. So,
and we did tune into one of our podcasts where we did go into it deeper. Yeah,
that's true. So, okay. So we've got 15 movies and TV shows.
Yeah.
And I think you were a step ahead of me. I too, like you, kind of separated the two. One was the TV universe. One was the cinematic universe. I mean, obviously they're part of the same universe, but one was the cinematic releases and one was just the television releases.
Yeah.
What's your overall feeling of the entire Phase 4? And, we can break it down into movies versus TV show, but in general, what did you think?
I mean, another word for Phase 4, maybe it's not a word, another way to characterize Phase 4 was transition phase, which is, we can't rely on Chris Evans and Iron Man and all the same guys anymore, right? We've still got a huge franchise, so I would call Phase 4 the transition phase, where they tried to introduce a lot of TV shows to see what sticks. In almost every movie, they tried to insert new characters. Eternals is entirely new. Shang-Chi is entirely new. Black Widow introduced, some new folks. For me, it was an effort to kind of transition MCU from all the Avengers that we knew and loved to some new characters, sprinkle in a little bit of Spider-Man and some other characters that we know, Falcon, Winter Soldier, so on and so forth, Hawkeye, and let's see if we can kind of, let them bring up the new folks. I think that's where we were with Phase 4 in terms of their strategic purpose for this phase.
Right.
Successful? Mostly, I have to say. I don't think that I found any characters that are beloved, and I think that, Black Panther Wakanda Forever is a great example, right? T'Challa, there's no more T'Challa for a lot of reasons, right? I mean, well, one reason, he passed away. Shuri is great. We love her, or we like her a lot. We're not in love with her, right? Thor, Love and Thunder, it didn't really do anything to transition Thor. Thor is still there. Same as Strange, Spider-Man. Eternals didn't give me anyone I'm interested in. Moon Knight, you liked it a lot. Hawkeye did try to introduce someone new. So did Ms. Marvel. So I think it's a transition phase, and I think it was more successful than not. But I don't find anyone who's iconic in the new introduced characters. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I think, in fact, it's not just fair. I think you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
I think that describing Phase 4 as a transitionary phase is the exact right way to think of it. Mm-hmm. By that, some people are going to have positive feelings of Phase 4. Some people are going to have very negative feelings on Phase 4. I think in general, I'm on the neutral to negative side. If you look on our scoring system, with our scoring system, we averaged a 2.2, or rather, I averaged a 2.2, and I think that you're pretty close. And I think that's because 9 out of the 15 shows and movies were a mooch, but you also had a few more skips than you had a few more must subscribes or watch in cinemas. And that's what dragged it down. Yeah. So in general, I think that this has been the weakest phase in the MCU that we've seen probably since Phase 1. And even in Phase 1, I don't think that was quite weak. In fact, I think that was quite strong. Weak in the sense that we didn't really know what they were trying to do as a grand vision.
But
in terms of individual films, they were all relatively solid, right? I think probably Thor 1 was the weakest out of all of them. And that's saying something, because Thor 1 wasn't bad. Or at least I don't think it was terrible. Certainly wasn't a skip.
I think it also depends how you came into Phase 4. So, for example, you and I have seen, there's 32 MCU movies right now. You and I have seen,
like that, yeah.
I've probably seen 30 or 31. You've seen all 32. You and I have one particular friend. Let's not name his or her name. He hasn't seen anything.
Yeah.
So I think if you come into Phase 4 new, whether because of your age or just your interest, I think,
or because he's got kids, you know, and you want to get into that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think then you would say Phase 4 was a little bit disappointing, where you're not enthralled by internals, right?
Yeah.
Shang-Chi, again, probably not super compelling. Thor, not the best Thor movie. Black Panther, the Black Panther wasn't even there anymore. If you're looking at television, you've got Moon Knight, okay, possibly. Ms. Marvel, okay, possibly. She-Hulk, absolutely not. So I think if you're coming new into Phase 4, what's the stickiness level of Phase 4? I think it's kind of low if you don't have what you and I have, which is the background of Phases 1, 2, and 3 to understand this transition phase, right?
Yeah, and I think it's also, look, at the end of the day, we can't blame Marvel. We can't say that everything is their fault, because, look, at the end of the day, you are now living in a post-Thanos, post-Iron Man universe, right? And I think no matter what you say, Phase 1 through 3, certainly at the beginning of that first phase, it was all Iron Man all the time. He was the central pillar. And I think by the end of Phase 3, it really became Iron Man and Captain America. I think Captain America kind of stood up.
Right.
And they became the two poles the tent poles that kind of stood, the MCU rested on their shoulders, rather.
Correct.
And now neither of those characters are in the universe. And, bless Anthony Mackie. He's a good guy. He's funny. He's charismatic. But if you have to put up Anthony Mackie versus Chris Evans, I'm going to go with Chris Evans every day of the week.
Yeah.
As Captain America. That's not to say that Anthony Mackie's Captain America isn't good. We haven't seen it yet. We saw hit for 30 minutes in the last episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
That's right.
We're going to see more of it in the next phase. I think the Captain America New World Order comes out in Phase 5, which is, so we'll see more of that, and we'll see if he can hold up to that. At this moment, I think it's super clear for me that in the MCU, the tentpole figure that they've got is now, realistically, Benedict Cumberbatch and Doctor Strange. I don't think they've got anybody else. Thor,
Spider-Man. Spider-Man.
Yeah, but here's the problem with Spider-Man. He is not 100% owned by the MCU. So, because of that, I really believe that Disney will never truly put the weight of the entire MCU on Tom Holland's shoulders. And that has nothing to do with Tom Holland. That is just the fact that Sony owns 50% of the rights. Actually, if you look at it that way, Sony owns 100% of the rights.
Yeah.
But as we've seen with Amy Pascal, as we've seen with Sony, they're also prone to, emotional outbursts. And who's to say? So Tom Holland rumored to have signed a new 6-movie deal with the MCU and Sony. He's supposed to be starring in an all-new Spider-Man trilogy. That's 3 movies. In both Avengers movies. That's another 2 movies. And he's supposed to be in the next Daredevil series. So that's going to be 6 shows and movies that he's a part of. But, having said that, if Sony decides they want to blow it up, they theoretically can. And I'm not saying they will, because there's a lot of money. Yeah. But at the same time, you've seen them posture negatively in the past. And I think Kevin Feige is not one to be trifled with. I think he would sooner say, you know what? You think you've got something great with the Spider-Verse and your Morbius movies? You go do that. Let's see if Tom Holland can save Morbius. We've got everybody else. So
I don't think it's Cumberbatch as I love Doctor Strange. I think he's a great character, and I think Cumberbatch is amazing. Cumberbatch also is, unlike Tom Holland, on the older side.
Exactly.
I don't really if movies are coming out every 3 years, in 9 years, if you're going to do 3 movies, Cumberbatch is not looking like Cumberbatch that we were originally introduced to, right? Same with Thor.
Yeah.
Thor is...
I would agree with you, except for 2 things.
Yeah.
Phase 6 ends in 2026. In the next 4 years, we're going to have 2 phases of the MCU.
Is that possible?
Theoretically.
So what's in Phase 5? What's in Phase 5?
So
I'll tell you what I'm so excited for. Go for it. I'm just going to talk about movies. I'm not going to bother talking about any of the TV shows. Oh.
You've got kicking off with Ant-Man 3.
Yes, Quantumania. I cannot tell you how excited I am for this.
Then you've got Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
That's right. That dude is a tentpole. What's his name? Chris Pratt?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Really?
I don't think so.
Star-Lord?
As a character, definitely not. And as an actor, I'm skeptical.
Oh.
Then you've got Brie Larson in The Marvels, where I think we're going to see Kamala Khan as well.
Likely, yes.
Then you've got Captain America New World Order. That's in 24.
Okay.
Then you've got the Thunderbolts movie.
What is this? I've been waiting for 23 minutes to ask you that. What is Thunderbolts?
Oh, so remember I was telling you a couple weeks ago about the MCU version of the Suicide Squad?
Yeah.
This is it. Julia Louis-Dreyfus is the head of the team. She's the boss. And then you've got Black Widow's sister, Florence Pugh. She's there. You've got David Harbour in there as the Soviet version of Captain America.
I love David Harbour.
Yeah. All those guys.
What's his name?
You've got
Red.
And then you've got Sebastian Stan's Winter Soldier in that movie as well. So you've got a few of them in there. Red Guardian, that's who it was.
Red Guardian.
Then you've got Blade. So theoretically, Phase 3 ends with Blade in 2024. So
who's Blade? Who's playing Blade?
Mahershala Ali.
Oh. Okay, that should be good.
It should be great. He's a fantastic actor. Having said that, I've never seen him do anything incredibly physical. Mm-hmm. So I'm very interested to see his transformation, not just physically in terms of his body transformation, because Blade is a physically imposing character. But, that's the one thing about Wesley Snipes, right? When he played Blade, he had the physical part of it down. Yeah. He had the menacing part of it down. His acting part was a bit choppy. In this case, I think Mahershala Ali's acting is going to be 10 out of 10. Let's see how the physical comes out.
We should do some type of tribute to Blade, huh?
The movie that really got people convinced that, hey, not all superhero movies are silly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Blade predated X-Men. Anyway, so that's the ending of Phase 4. And then Phase 5 kicks off almost immediately. Theoretically, we still don't know anything about it, but theoretically, Deadpool comes out also in 2024. And surprise, surprise, this is where things get super spicy because Wolverine has confirmed to be a part of it with Hugh Jackman reprising as Wolverine. Oh, really? Yeah. Not just confirmed, they released a video on Instagram and everything. Fantastic. So that means that Deadpool 3 is probably where we see the introduction of the X-Men universe, or at least the beginnings of it, because you can't have the Wolverine and then not explain anything about mutant kind as well. And then you have Fantastic Four, which is the one I'm most looking forward to. And then you've got the 2 Avengers movies, which culminates in 2026 with Secret Wars.
But that's Phase 5 or that's Phase 6 now?
That's Phase 6. Phase 5 is very short. It's
Phase 5 is short. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I think Phase 4 was okay, but it sounds like Phase 5 and 6 are way more exciting.
So this is the thing, is I think what's happened is that what they've been doing in Phase 4 in a very ham-fisted way is what they tried to do in Phase 1, which is they were trying to set up the future of the MCU.
Yeah.
Right? They were trying to set up whoever the big bad is. They're trying to set up all the people who are going to be a part of the final battle sequence in Avengers.
Yeah.
They've been working backwards.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's why I think that Phase 4 has struggled with the pacing of its shows. Because they continually insist on building the wider universe at the cost of the present movie. We did not need to see Ironheart in Black Panther 2. But the only reason they shoved her in there is because, hey, all of a sudden we're going to have a new TV show with Ironheart in there. We need a new Iron Man style character. So how do we do that? Let's introduce her in Black Panther 2. I don't think that was a wise move. So, because they're always setting up future projects, which then takes away from the current projects. I think that's what the problem with Phase 4 has really been, is that they've been so focused on building up Phase 5 and, or not building up, but setting the table for the end of Phase 6 that they've critically hurt themselves and shot themselves in the foot with their own movies in this phase.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I have zero excitement for Ironheart.
Yeah.
None whatsoever. Primarily because we've kind of seen this before. Again, if it's going to be a female Iron Man, there's nothing new to see. I'm excited to see something new, not a new Black Panther, not a new Iron Man. I want to see someone, even like a new Hawkeye, right?
Let me read out the TV series confirmed for Phase 5. And you tell me what, if any of them, intrigue you. Okay?
Right. Okay.
You've got the second season of the What If series, the animated anthology.
No.
Secret Invasion.
What is this?
This is the one with Samuel L. Jackson and Daenerys Targaryen and Emilia Clarke. You've got Echo.
What's Echo?
She was the bad guy in Hawkeye. You know, the deaf lady?
Not really. Okay, so I guess I have no excitement then. Fine.
Season 2 of Loki.
Okay, yes.
Ironheart.
Nope.
Agatha, Coven
What
of
is
Chaos.
What is that?
She was the bad guy in WandaVision.
Nope.
And then the last one is Daredevil, Born Again.
Daredevil, yes, but I have to say, I have not yet been convinced that this actor who's playing Daredevil is captivating me, but the idea of Daredevil, yes.
Okay. So here's where, of these 7 shows, the only ones that truly right now are interesting to me, the first season of Secret Invasion, second season of Loki, and then the first season of Daredevil.
Which are all old,
Charlie Cox,
Yeah.
I think the only reason you're saying that right now about Charlie Cox is maybe because you haven't seen the Daredevil shows on Netflix, the original Daredevil shows. For me, out of all of them, he's probably actually, including the cinematic universe, one of my top 5 characters. Maybe even top 3 characters. He's that good.
That means, and I remember we talked about this before, he had a very short cameo in Spider-Man.
Yep.
And they did no justice to him whatsoever. Or that character, right?
No,
they threw a brick through the window. He caught the brick, right?
He was a wink and smile to the audience.
Yes.
That's it. That was his role in that movie.
Yes.
Where they actually did him disservice is, I believe, that he actually plays an important role in She-Hulk. And he was supposedly in She-Hulk, but guess what, Marvel? You fudged up She-Hulk so badly, your hardcore fans that were with you didn't watch She-Hulk, and now I don't know where Charlie Cox and Daredevil is in with She-Hulk, and I don't care.
I have stronger words than fudged up, but
yeah,
I agree
friendly.
with the sentiment. It was dark chocolate, dark fudge. It's bad.
When I found out after the fact that Charlie Cox and Daredevil was in She-Hulk, I mean, he was teased, but I thought he was just going to be a quick wink and smile again cameo.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently he plays an integral part in the latter half of the season. Supposedly, I don't know.
No way. I'm not
I
gonna
got so
watch
upset.
She-Hulk.
I got so upset because I'm sorry, I love Charlie Cox, but I am not going to sit through that televisual turd that is She-Hulk to see Daredevil. It's just terrible.
Yeah. Do you think that Disney, I've also read that Disney had like dramatic number of layoffs, which is not unusual. I mean, a number of companies have, but do you think that this is going to shake up Disney a little bit and they're going to like take stock and say, hold on, we tried something unique for She-Hulk, did not work. We tried something unique for this, did not work. Let's kind of get back to basics and stop getting, too experimental with our intellectual property.
I don't see that happening. I mean, I don't see that happening for two reasons. One, regardless of critical success, you cannot argue with box office success. Disney has been printing money with the MCU. Yeah? And moreover, Disney Plus as a television platform has also now surpassed Netflix as the largest streaming platform.
Is that right?
Earth. Yeah. They're being rewarded on both ends. And so they probably don't want to change that formula. And their formula right now, and look, I'm not going to criticize. This is not the right forum for it. And it obviously won't come off as well received if two straight guys start talking about, the politics as to why Disney is making some of the decisions it's making. But the reality is Disney has no financial incentive to change their thought process. And this goes to the same with Star Wars, by the way, as to how they're representing the characters they're putting on to the screen, because they're being rewarded for it in the marketplace.
Yeah, maybe that's true.
So
we'll see. Yeah.
As much as I hated She-Hulk,
yeah,
She-Hulk as one show did not result in people mass leaving Disney Plus.
I'd like to see numbers. I'd really be interested if we could see numbers in terms of like minutes watched and stuff like that.
I'd love to, but there's no way Disney would actually ever release those numbers, because especially if it comes off that the show wasn't doing well.
Yeah. But to me, the fact that those numbers are not available.
Yeah, that's a signal in itself.
Yeah.
In any case.
I'm super excited for Ant-Man. I'm super excited for Guardians of the Galaxy. I love Captain Marvel. I don't like the other Marvel lady. Captain America, okay, reasonably excited. You sold me on Thunderbolts, I have to say. Blade, yep. But the TV, not
so
as
the
much.
TV does very little for me at this moment. This moment, I think Secret Invasions is going to be probably the most pivotal of those, because it's the one that probably ties up the most cleanly with the Avengers movies, with the Secret Wars movies. And also, I mean, you don't hire Emilia Clarke to be in a TV series and not set her up for something future. She's so good. She's such a great actor. She's gorgeous. She's capable of anything. Why would you waste her on a Disney Plus TV series and not put her into the MCU? It's the same argument I had for Oscar Isaac in Moon Knight. He's such an incredible actor. He's so handsome. Why would you waste him? And I don't mean to say that, it's a waste to put yourself on a TV show. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that as a part of the MCU, as a part of the wider audience, the MCU, the cinematic portion of the MCU is far more lucrative than the television aspect.
That's probably true, but I have to say, I wonder what is the driver? And one of the ways you could look at this is that if you don't have successful television, you're not going to drive people to the cinemas.
I don't think that's true for the MCU, though, because the MCU started with the movies. I think the reality was that the movies were always the prime event and the TV shows were supplementary material.
Let's think of my brother, okay? Let's use a better example. My brother.
Okay.
My brother is not going to go to the cinema and see any of these movies.
Okay.
Ant-Man, like if I would if I would ask him, he would see Ant-Man, he would see Guardians. Marvels, he'd be like, what else is playing? Captain America, he would see with me. But he is not going to go individually. Like you and I, we go by ourselves. We have our hoodie, we have our popcorn. We watch each of these by ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. We're good corporate MCU fans.
Yeah.
My brother's not going to see any of these. My sisters, like, they're not even going to, like, consider it. My brother might be like, hey, Ant-Man's playing? Nah. My sisters aren't even going to be aware of the existence of any of these movies. And it has to be, the TV has to drive viewers, because otherwise you're the only people who are going to go to these movies in phase 5, phase 6, beyond is me and you.
The beauty of the Disney Plus platform is such that if your brother didn't go see Ant-Man in the cinema, right, even though he considered it for the 5 seconds before he rejected it, the fact that he considered it means that when it hits the Disney Plus platform in 6 weeks or 8 weeks after the movie's been released in the cinema, he's more likely to watch it at home.
On Disney Plus.
Yes. On Disney Plus. And
I agree with that.
That's what I mean. So, for like, if your brother considers watching Ant-Man in the cinema versus What If Season 2 or Loki Season 2 or whatever your standard TV show is on Disney Plus, I think that he would be way more interested in watching a one-off movie from the MCU on Disney Plus over a series on on the platform. Yeah. And I think the fact that he watches that movie, and if that movie clicks with him, he is more likely to go to the cinema for the next movie in the MCU. Whereas, even if he liked Loki Season 2 a lot, I don't think Loki as a TV series is going to be a driver for him to get up and go to the cinema to watch the next MCU film.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's my feeling. So that, again, and this is where Disney kind of gets to cover all its bases. All right, Ethan's brother doesn't want to watch it in the cinema? No problem. He can watch it when it's on Disney Plus, and maybe there's a 30% chance after he watches it on Disney Plus, he will go to the cinema to see the next movie in the actual theater.
I mean, maybe that's true, but if you look at Phase 4, Black Widow was a known and beloved character from all the different Avengers movies, right? People wanted to see her stand alone. Shang-Chi was an unusual character. Eternals had nothing, although that was, I don't know what the benefit of Eternals was. Spider-Man, we know. Doctor Strange was a sequel. Thor was a sequel. Black Panther was a sequel. Ant-Man's a sequel. Guardians is a sequel. The Marvels is a curious one. That will really be interesting to see how that movie plays.
I think it's going to, I'll tell you right now, I think that's going to be of all the movies that are on the list for Phase 5, I strongly suspect that The Marvels is going to be one of the biggest hits. I don't know if it's going to surpass Guardians 3, but I'm pretty sure it's going to come close. Because of the demographics. Yeah. I think you've got 3 empowered female superheroes.
Who are the 3? Captain Marvel,
You've got
Ms.
Brie
Marvel.
Larson, Captain Marvel. Yeah. You've got Kamala Khan's Ms. Marvel, played by Imani Galani, something like that. Yeah. And then you've got the third one who's going to be in there, Monica Rambeau, who was the daughter in Captain Marvel. She was in WandaVision as well. I think she's a part of the MCU as well. Part of the Marvel universe as well. In terms of the gender demographics, you've got 3 incredibly strong, incredibly powerful superheroes in one movie. Then you've got, Brie Larson gets to be, even though she wasn't the first, she really gets to be the first superhero that's a female in the MCU. Then you've got Pakistani American and Muslim in Kamala Khan. Yeah. And then you've got an African American in Monica Rambeau. So, 3 also powerful demographic forces at play in terms of, look, if you're going to be very cynical and forget about the characters, but just look at the demographic traits, you've got 3 very strong drivers. Right? And that's not even including the fact that Kamala Khan is a very young actor.
That will be the bellwether. Yeah.
I think that'll be the bellwether, not just in terms of to Disney as to, hey, on paper, in terms of demographics, this should have been a $1 billion movie. If it's not, I think that's when Disney starts saying, okay, maybe we need to start thinking about the story.
Even Ant-Man and Guardians. I mean, Ant-Man, for me, I love Ant-Man. I mean, we love the dude. And actually, I like the Wasp, right? That lady.
Yeah.
And I have to say, for me, that's a very good intellectual property. But you can't say that Ant-Man has the same brand recognition of Thor, Doctor Strange, Black Panther. If Ant-Man's a little bit down, Guardians is the same. I mean, Guardians is the kind of counterculture.
Yes.
Right? I mean, it was
absolutely.
They're even by definition, they're the ragtag group, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So
it's all where the soundtrack is more important or equally as important as the people who are in the movie.
Yeah. So if Ant-Man and Guardians are a little bit down, especially after Thor, Love and Thunder, then suddenly I would say that there's a little bit of panic in terms of, wait a second, how are the Marvels going to do? Captain America's not Captain America anymore. Thunderbolts is totally new. It's looking a little bit dicey, right?
It is looking a bit dicey, but again, I mean, not to count chickens before they hatch, but the reality is that right now, I am far more excited by Phase 5 than I was by than I was by the reality of Phase 4. Again, on paper, Phase 4 beats Phase 5 because, you've got Black Panther, you've got Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Thor, etc. But the reality of the results were such that I prefer the paper results of Phase 5 to the actual results of Phase 4 at the moment. There's only 3 properties out of 15 that are must-watch or a must.
Are we going to see Black Widow again? Is that the end of Black Widow?
Well, theoretically, the new Black Widow is Florence Pugh's character, Yelena Belova.
Yeah.
And I loved her. I thought she was fantastic in that movie.
She was fantastic. And Red Guardian. Oh, man. Loved Red Guardian.
Great humor. Great humor.
Yeah.
Look, I think the reality for me is that Phase 4 for the MCU was really a reconstruction phase. It's like that adage when you have a team in the NFL or the NBA that's in the reconstruction phase.
Reloading,
the rebuilding phase. That's for any sports team, and this isn't just about U.S. sports, it's kind of true any professional league anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
They've lost the best players. They've lost their, Lionel Messi. They've lost their Michael Jordan due to retirement, due to age, due to whatever it is. They've lost all the superstars that won them 5 championships in a row. And so now they've kind of said, okay, well, this season is all about rebuilding. We still have 1 or 2 superstars on our squad, but not enough to carry the team. So we're going to invest in new characters. We're going to invest in younger characters, which is what you've seen they've done, right? You've got the Ms. Marvel she's a high school student. You've got the new Hawkeye, who's also a high school student. You've got Shuri, who's very young. You've got Florence Pugh, who's very young. Tom Holland, also relatively young guy. So, you've got a whole cadre of very young people. And if you look at Phase 5, most of those actors and most of those characters not young, right? Ant-Man isn't known for being a young guy. None of the Guardians are known for being young. Sebastian Stan isn't young. David Harbour isn't young. Mahershala Ali is not young. Blade isn't young. You know what I mean? So Ironheart, young character. Echo, relatively young character. So you see that they're starting to build up a squad of hopefully youthful superstars who can take them through Phase 5 and 6 and win them more championships.
I have to say, your metaphor is actually quite good. I mean, you really laid it out probably in a very good way, maybe even better than anyone has done it like at Disney corporate headquarters. Like that's a very, very intelligent way, I think, to describe what they're trying to do. I feel like I've got to watch Daredevil. I feel like Daredevil is the area that I'm really missing out on. that seems to be something I probably need to shore up based on like what
I
you've
would
said.
recommend you actually start with the Netflix version of Daredevil. The original, I call it Netflix. It really wasn't. It was obviously an ABC production. But watch that first season. And if by the end of that first season you're not convinced, then I think you can write off Daredevil overall. Because that first season of Daredevil was, in my opinion, some of the finest Marvel work I've ever seen. And it was a shame. It was a real shame that it
Dude, you should say that again for emphasis. Like, that's a really, really big statement, yeah?
Yeah, look, Charlie Cox did such a phenomenal job of representing Matt Murdock and representing Daredevil, which is rare. Usually you get one character who can do one or the other, but he did a fantastic job for both sides. Like, we talk about this with Batman.
We talked about it exactly with Batman and Bruce Wayne. Exactly the way that you broke it down blew my mind, because that's a very, very intelligent way to assess the dichotomy of two different characters, right? The character and their alter ego superhero inside. Yes.
Yeah. And Charlie Cox, I think, nailed it. I really think so. And it's one of the reasons I was so upset in that phase 2 and 3 that they didn't involve the Daredevil, at least into the MCU, because he was so clearly one of the best characters in the first 3 phases. So clearly. And I just think that
how old has he become? Like, he has... And why is there no movie? There used to be a Daredevil movie. What happened to the movie? Or he's only going to appear like he's as cameos now?
Charlie Cox is our age. He's about to turn 40. Yeah, anyway, I highly recommend it. He's such a good actor. And moreover, his depiction, one of the best.
And this is actually a very, very interesting time, because we just finished Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. That's the end of phase 4. Now is really the time to shore up on anything that you haven't seen. Watch WandaVision, watch Falcon and Winter Soldier, watch Loki, watch What If, refresh yourself on anything that you haven't seen, because once, Ant-Man, Guardian, the Marvels come out, it's going to go fast, right? I'm feeling like, will I gain anything if I watch the Blades all over again?
Probably not, because this is going to be a total reboot.
Right? There's nothing from Wesley Snipes' Blades.
No. I mean, as they're great movies in terms of very entertaining to watch.
Yeah.
But in terms of story and value add in the MCU, you're not going to get anything.
Too bad.
Phase 4 for me was, let's say, a critical disappointment. Or maybe not disappointment, but it underwhelmed. Let's put it that way. It was underwhelming. Phase 5 and 6, I have great expectations for, because even though they've only announced 17 films and shows, bear in mind, they haven't mentioned anything with the X-Men at all. And frankly speaking, the X-Men universe has so many wonderful characters that they could build their own phase around just the X-Men if they wanted to.
Yeah, I agree. Once they fold X-Men into the mix,
there's no really looking back for them. Yeah.
Do you want X-Men to be more standalone, or do you want it to really be integrated with everything?
So the X-Men are such an integral part of the Marvel Comics world, but such a big part of the Marvel Comics world that you can have them just have their own universe within the MCU.
Yeah.
But I also think that some of the most excellent stories that the X-Men's comics have involved non-X-Men characters. So like the interaction between Wolverine and the Hulk, for example, awesome. The interaction between even Wolverine and Spider-Man, awesome. So, you see, and there's a lot of different interactions there. So like in the comics, Storm married T'Challa.
Oh, really? No way. I had no idea that was true. Really?
So this was pre-Civil War in the comics. So they were a married couple. So it obviously won't work now for multitudes of reasons, but still, there's so many like incredibly interesting ways of mixing the two, right? The X-Men and the wider MCU into them, that I think that you would shoot yourself in the foot by making them separate.
Oh, that's cool.
So and then now that we've seen Namor, by the way, I strongly suspect that there will eventually be an Illuminati, which they kind of talked about in Doctor Strange. But like there should be one, right? Where you have Namor, Professor X, and like a bunch of Reed Richards and a bunch of these guys.
Yeah.
There's so much they can do with it.
Oh, man. I have to say, you got me. When is Ant-Man Quantumania coming out?
I think February 23rd or 28th, something like that.
You know what we should do? One of our episodes, we should start to take an early view of 2023 cinema.
That's actually a really good idea.
We know that this year that's really something that we probably need to do, right?
I agree, because we're 5, maybe 6 weeks in till the end of the year. So at some point we're going to have to start looking at what TV shows we're thinking about next year, what movies we're thinking about next year. Because again, in terms of Hollywood's releases, I think there's no more than 2, maybe 3 more that we really want to look at for this year. And then Avatar, Creed, and then Glass Onion. That's about it.
What's Glass Onion?
Knives Out 2.
It's called Glass Onion?
Glass Onion, a Knives Out film or something like that.
Huh.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Officially hits select theaters this weekend. And then it stays in the cinema for a couple weeks. And then it gets released on Netflix, I think at the end of December. But I think they're releasing it in certain cinemas because, as we've discussed, Hollywood Academy rules. If it's not released in cinemas, you can't be eligible for Academy Awards and things like that.
Yeah. How far are we away from Avatar? Are we excited about Avatar? You saw the
trailer.
Yeah.
I'm so-so. I'm neither here nor there. Avatar comes out December 15th. 16th.
Right before Christmas. Yeah,
I'm not super excited for it, but I'm not down on it either.
I guess that's how I feel. I think that's a pretty good way to summarize it. I mean, the original Avatar was great, but was it great because of the graphics or because of the story? Am I really excited for another one? I'm not yet. And I saw the trailer, and the trailer didn't. Like, I saw the trailer for Ant-Man, and I was like, I've got to see that. Like, if they, like, I saw the trailer for Ant-Man Quantumania before I saw Black Panther. And if there was an option where you could have like walked into the theater across and watched that one, I absolutely would have done it. I'd be like, whoa, this looks way better than I think Black Panther is going to be. I'll go watch that. Whereas I saw the trailer for Avatar 2, and I'm like, and if I would have had the same option, I would have been like, nah, I'll stay at Black Panther Wakanda forever.
For me, Avatar was 100% about the 3D effects and about the graphics. It was the first 3D movie that blew me away.
Yes.
And that was kind of it. The story is a very generic story, right? It's about colonialism and imperialism. That's kind of it.
It's about Iraq. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Yes.
Yeah, it's a story that we've seen not just in real life, but in other shows time and time again.
I agree. I mean, there was some elements of the story where it was very emotive and there were nice elements of it. For sure, the story was good. But yes, it was the graphics that was the wow part of it.
I remember walking out of that cinema and saying, if that's what 3D movies are going to be like, this is the wave of the future. And unfortunately, no one has delivered on that. In fact, we've gone out of our way to avoid 3D movies. Whereas Avatar, if it's showing in 3D, will be the only movie that I actively seek out a 3D movie.
Let's just take that statement and dive into it. Very good point. Why, in the year 2022, have we not had any advances, and please don't tell me Dolby Atmos, why have we not had really any advances in our cinema experience for the last
30
years?
50 years? I mean, the cinema's been the same for me basically ever since I started going when I was like 6 years old.
I mean, visually, okay, I agree. The sound has improved.
Yeah.
The popcorn has improved.
I mean, the experience.
Visually,
the actual physical experience is
visually, no improvement. How?
I will say the only time I've ever felt that the actual experience of going to the cinema has changed was, have you been to a 4DX theater?
Yeah, and I don't want wind and water like spritzed at me. It's a joke.
But that's what I mean. That's the only time I felt something different.
My cousin told me to afford to one of those 4DX movies, and it was almost the most annoying thing that I've ever been a part of. Right? I don't want to sit and be bounced around like I'm on a horse. I don't feel like I'm in a buggy, and I don't want to be in a buggy. I want to be comfortable. I don't want someone blowing my hair. I don't want water all over my face. I thought this was it was a blooper reel. Like, I can't believe I paid more to have someone like squirt water in my face and blow my hair all over the place. This is a joke.
It was, I saw a Fast and the Furious movie. I can't remember which one. And, at first I thought it was kind of cool that the seat also moves and rocked and kind of tilted. I thought that was okay. I thought it was like a lame monorail ride.
Yeah.
But then it started getting ridiculous because you're getting you're getting basically spit on. And then at the same time, the last thing I want to smell in the cinema is burnt rubber because you're trying to emulate the screeching of wheels and spinning of wheels.
It's a joke.
I'm smelling burnt rubber. I'm
It's a
smelling
joke.
gasoline. And I'm just like, okay, this is not what I was
Absolute
hoping for.
joke. I cannot imagine that they did any testing on real people before agreeing to spend more on such a thing.
I think what they did was I went in Universal Studios and I went on the Shrek ride, which was like that 4DX experience.
Yeah.
And kids love it because if you sneeze and then all of a sudden they get snot sprayed in their face, kids laugh, right? Because kids will love it because, he sneezed, he had snot. Something I do too. That's fine for children. But when you're trying to watch a serious movie, or even not a serious movie, but a movie as an adult,
I agree.
That's the last thing you want.
It's a joke. So getting back to the point, and you're absolutely right. No advances in cinema visual experience. And I don't want to hear someone's gonna message us and say that's because 3D cameras are different than HD cameras and blah 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 blah. I agree.
Ugh.
The point is, nevertheless, that we haven't had any advances in our visual technology.
Give me a headset that makes me feel like I'm in the movie. Give me something different. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
It doesn't. Because even the 3D experiences that we have, and forget the glasses, which is a joke as well. You get a little bit a random butterfly lands on you. There's some snow. It's like they almost intentionally find a way to put something in there unnecessary, right?
The drop of water in gravity.
Yes.
Just to indicate that you've got it. It's kind of like a tick mark. Okay, we've got the 3D part.
And
let's
that's exactly.
move on.
And that's not what I don't want leaves in my face. I want to watch an experience where I actually feel like I'm in that location.
Can you imagine if
immersive.
A bullet went flying past your face?
Yeah.
Right? That would be cool.
Yeah, Matrix, you should see bullets being whizzing past you.
Slow
Concrete
motion
pieces
whizzing
should be
past. Exactly. Yeah. That I'm in.
I feel like that's one of the areas where the breakdown of the cinema versus the studio falls, right? Which is the cinema's the studio is like, hey, why should we get this camera to make this when none of the theaters have the technology to show it? And the theaters are like, hey, why should we invest in all this technology to show something if no one's going to make it, right?
Yeah,
and this is where when Paramount or whomever it is buys a cinema chain and says, hey, this is ours, then at least they'll have the integration in place to say, hey, now we're going to upgrade our screens and our experiences, and we're going to upgrade our equipment when we shoot films, and we'll make sure that we give, moviegoers a consistent experience. Then it works. But until that time, there's just neither party has the incentive to upgrade without the commitment to the other side.
Yeah, I agree.
Boo. That's what I say. Boo.
Anyway, so not that we went off on too much of a tangent, but that is our take on the fourth phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Oh, yeah. Good take
not
indeed.
Not bad, but certainly not great and nowhere near as good as the first three phases.
Mm-hmm.
But you can see that they've got the building blocks to kind of prop up phase 5 and 6. And, we are internally optimistic. We don't want to see anyone do poorly. We hope it's a success.
Yeah. Okay, Pete, this was amazing. Next week, we can look forward to finalizing the season finale of Andor. I think that deserves a big discussion. We'll also have more Stream or Skip for our listeners who avidly listen to that. And next Friday, we will be having another watch party for Amazon's The Peripheral, which if you haven't watched it, you are missing out on a phenomenal sci-fi show.
Agreed. Really one of the better ones we've seen in a long time.
So send Pete some DMs. He loves to get them. He loves to respond. Send him all your fan mail and love. Maybe he'll send you a hoodie in response.
At F&S Podcast or aloha at filmsandstuffpodcast.com. Hey, what was your favorite Phase 4 movie? What was your favorite Phase 4 show? Or, even better, what do you think is going to happen in Phase 5? We know what the titles of Phase 6, the Avengers movies are. We kind of know where it's going. What do you think is going to happen? Who do you think are going to be the key players? Let us know.
All right, Pete, thank you. Listeners, thank you.
Thank you, Ethan. Thanks, everyone.
See you on the flip side. Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.